I've got the munchies, Michelle, and this is episode number 11. Are you overeating? Welcome to the I Cut the Mustard show, where a plant-based diet and small, simple moves make healthy change happen. And where we believe that you already have what it takes to slice through any barrier that stands in your way. Shing! You're sharp enough. You cut the mustard. Good morning, guys and gals. It's me again. I've been so fascinated by this topic that we're going to talk about today, overeating. And I want to announce sort of a shift in the focus of this podcast that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to teach people how to stop overeating, but I felt like I wasn't quite there 100%, and I didn't have all the right tools or all the right understanding. I felt like I was missing something, and because of that, I've been afraid to dedicate my practice to primarily focusing on this topic. But recently, within the past few months, I found it. I found the missing link that I've been looking for, and I am so excited to share it with you. It's really that piece that seals the deal. It honestly was pretty obvious, and I kind of wish that I hadn't missed it for so long, but I am so glad that I've got it all together now, not only for myself, because now I feel like I'm free from food. I can control food in a way that I've never done before. And I know how to teach it to other people as well. So it's going to be super fun these next couple weeks as I dive into it a little bit more. But here's the thing. Almost all of us are overeating, and all of us have overeaten at one point or another in our lives. And for most of us, overeating and controlling food is the big reason that we can't lose weight. It's the reason that we don't feel confident in ourselves. So I wanted to speak to that a lot because I feel like it's going to be a key that unlocks the door to your freedom and helps you gain the confidence. Well, number one, the health that you've been missing. I think a lot of us want to move towards a healthier lifestyle, whether it's 100% plant-based or not, but we just can't get ourselves to do it, right? So I think this is going to be the key to help you get yourself to do it. And then to have the confidence thereafter to just go out and do amazing things to make healthy change happen in the world. It includes a lot of mindset tools I've been teaching this far. And again, like I said, a lot of the things were coming together already, but it's just this one little missing piece that I found. And I've been able to create a framework that's going to make this thing successful for you and for me. And I'm super excited. So successfully controlling food without deprivation. So today, to start off, I just wanted to get into the definition of overeating. In case you're not sure, or I'm probably just going to include in a few things that maybe you haven't thought of before. So maybe you think that you do, but you don't know what to do about it. Maybe you think that you are an overeater, but you're not sure what to do. Or maybe you kind of have this suspicion that you have a problem with controlling your food, but you're kind of ignoring it because, you don't want to deal with that right now. So I'm here to share with you both of those things. So today we're going to talk about what is overeating and a little bit about what to do about it. And then over the next several weeks, we'll dive into really uncovering what the issues are for you and how to get past them so that you can control food in a way that you've never done before, so that your desire for eating that chocolate cake just isn't there anymore. You can genuinely say to yourself, I don't really want that right now. And because of that, you can move forward and lose weight and have the health that you desire in your life. Or if your goal is to eat one bite of chocolate cake and then leave it alone, will get your mind to the place where you can totally do that and you're not out of control and going crazy like a crazy lady, like I feel like sometimes. So let's get started here. So overeating. Even without looking at a dictionary, we can tell by the word that overeating is eating more than we need, than our body actually needs right now. it defines itself, right? So let's dive into that a little bit more. All right. So number one, you could be overeating because you're eating too many calories. So this can happen in 3 ways. Number one is whenever you eat too much at meal times. These are the people that say, oh, I don't really like sweets. I just love food. And I just can't portion control. Please teach me how to portion control. So for whatever reason, we're sitting down at that meal. It's delicious. Maybe it's just because it's delicious, or we're sitting with friends, or maybe we're watching TV, we're distracted. Whatever it is, we hear that little nudge in our brain maybe that says, I think I'm getting full, but we will just keep eating anyway. And we're eating more than we need at that particular meal. And the way that you can tell that you're doing this is, number one, you could be feeling stuffed afterwards, right? Another way you can tell if you've overeaten at a meal is heartburn or like a lot of burps. I find that whenever I overeat, I'm just more gassy. So those are 2 ways you can tell. So just sitting at a meal, overeating at a meal. And then the second way that you can get too many calories is through snacking, of course. So you could be just the I love food person, right? And overeating, or you could just be someone who eats all the time, just always snacking. And recently I was listening to the author of The Hungry Brain, Stephen Guyenet. I hope I'm saying that right. But he mentioned in his book that since the 70s, Americans have been eating an average of 218 calories more per day than they did in the 70s. So that's an average, obviously. So some people are eating less than that, and some people are eating, some people are eating only 100 calories more, and some people are eating 400, 700 calories more per day than we need. And he mentioned that a lot of those calories come from snacking. Dr. Greger, in one of his videos, also a video that talked about sugar, said that Americans eat 200 calories of sugar per day. So I think with those 2 things, you kind of combine them together. Snacking in our society has kind of become a problem and maybe where you're getting your extra calories. And I think it's so tricky there because I think it's easy to overeat when you're snacking because there's no fullness meter really, right? So you could have a little snack or you could have a big snack, but you're not filling up and stopping and then waiting till you're empty and filling up and stopping again. So your brain's not giving the signal that says, hey, we're full, right? So the third way I think that we can overeat more calories than we need is by social eating, right? So we've all done this before. You go out, maybe your friends invite you to dinner. So you go out and they give you this huge portion and you're all done. But because your friends are still talking, then you keep eating as well. You keep picking at your plate without thinking about it. Or maybe they decide to eat dessert, so you decide to eat dessert too because everyone else is doing it. Or maybe you have been invited to your friend's house and there's certain things that you don't really want to eat, but you don't want to be rude, right? That's a big one that I hear all the time. I don't want to be rude by not eating. And I think that happens in a lot of other cultures as well. South American cultures, you go over and you eat it because if you don't eat it, that would be ungrateful. That would be rude, right? So even though you don't necessarily want the things that are in front of you, or maybe you're full, you're going to eat it because you're around other people. And you don't want to explain that you're on a diet, or you don't want to hear their criticism, or again, you don't want to offend them, etc. So the fourth way to eat too many calories is what Brooke Castillo calls fog eating. And fog eating is whenever you're eating without really paying attention to what you're doing. So you could be sitting around the house, you walk by the pantry and you see something, so you grab a snack. Or you could be, maybe a better example would be whenever I'm fixing dinner and I just keep tasting things, but I'm not exactly sure by the end of making dinner how much food I've eaten because I'm not counting those little bites that I keep grabbing and sticking in my mouth. Another way of fog eating could be when you're distracted by reading a book, or you've got the TV on and you're watching a movie, so you just keep eating and eating. You're not really paying attention to how much you're eating, right? We've all done this with popcorn at the movies, or when we reach and we're playing a game and we're having snacks while we're playing games with other people, right? So that's another way that we can be overeating, just by eating too many calories. So those are lots of ways that you can overeat by eating too many calories. So that's the first type of overeating that we talked about. We talked about eating too many calories just when you're sitting at a meal. You don't want to stop eating because it's so delicious, or you don't have a turn off switch, right? We talked about snacking, and again, maybe not being able to tell how full you are, or because they're strewn throughout the day, you're eating more calories than you think you are. Number 3 was social eating, where we just are eating because other people around us are eating to fit in or to not be rude. And then the 4th way was to fog eat, where we're just not really paying attention, but we're putting that food into our mouths. So the second type of overeating that I want to talk about is to eat the wrong foods. So one reason, again, is just overeating, eating more than we need to. But another type of overeating is eating the wrong foods. So let's go back to those chips and popcorn. Whenever you eat foods that are really, really delicious, like the foods that have salt, sugar, and oil, or all of those tasty things mixed together, then you're activating all of those delicious pleasure sensors in your brain. And those are kind of overriding your ability to feel fullness, maybe. And because all of these foods are so high, they have a high calorie density, which means there's a lot of calories in just a little bit of food. Whenever we have pleasurably high calorie dense foods, then Dr. Guyenet, the Hungry Brain author, talks about how these foods actually don't satiate you. So they've done studies before, and whenever we eat things that are really delicious, that are really high in calories, but low in nutrients, then we don't feel full as long. So we don't feel full as early on in the meal, and we don't feel full the fullness doesn't last very long. We're getting hungry again just a little while after that, 2 hours after that or whatever. But whenever we eat high nutrient dense foods that have lots of nutrients and fiber and good things for our body, then we tend to stay full longer, right? So we overeat the foods that are delicious because they're delicious, right? And we don't want to stop overeating them, and they have so many calories in them. But so we're eating more calories than we mean to. Okay, so I think it's because a lot of us rely on that sensor that our bodies have, right? I'm going to eat when I'm hungry. I'm going to stop when I'm full, right? So in order to do that, I mean, that sounds like a great thing to do, right? I think there's a lot of trends out there now to do intuitive eating, which I don't have a problem with. But if you're just trying to tap into your body and what it's feeling, then your body can be tricked because it's so delicious and it's not feeling full yet, that you could be overeating even though you don't feel like you're overeating. I hope that makes sense. So whenever you eat those delicious high calorie foods, even though you're not feeling full yet, you could be overeating. So let me give you an example. Whenever I was pregnant, this is kind of just a little bit embarrassing to admit, but obviously you're really hungry when you're pregnant. But I promised that I was not this hungry. I was craving really oily foods. So I used to crave cheese a lot whenever I was pregnant, and I wasn't 100% vegan or plant-based back then. So I was still playing with eating cheese sometimes. And when I was pregnant, I was craving cheese. So my husband and I there was this pizza place that we loved. So we got this huge pizza. I don't know. It was a large size, medium large size Hawaiian pizza with some cheese fries. And these weren't just any old cheese fries. This is like, your dinner takeout container. That's a really large square takeout container. That's the size of these cheese fries. So I ended up eating, I'm trying to remember how much of the pizza my husband ate, maybe a slice or two. And then I ate the rest of the pizza, almost that entire pizza, and at least half of the cheese fries, more than half of the cheese fries, right? I don't know how many calories was in that thing, probably like 1,000, 2,000 calories in that thing because it had so much oil, right? But I did feel like I was pretty full. In that case, I was feeling full by the end. Let's be honest. Like, that's a lot of food. But it was so delicious. And then there was only one piece left, right? Or there was only a couple fries left. So I just kept eating until I was done. So I was kind of having both problems right there. Because it was delicious, I was eating more calories than my body really needs before I started to feel full. And then when I started to feel full, again, it's so delicious, I didn't want to stop. So then I was overeating past that point. So I was eating too many calories and I was eating the wrong foods. So I'm saying that there's two types of overeating, but really these are just two parts of it, right, that are often intertwined. So I just want you to step back and think about if any of these situations I described have described the way that you eat. And I think more than just the physical eating too many calories, or maybe not being able to be in tune with when you're full and overeating because the foods are delicious, I think these are that's just the physical part of overeating, really. We can talk about that, and we could break it down into various ways that it's detrimental to your health as well, right? Just that physical part of overeating foods every time. And like I said, maybe you're getting heartburn, maybe you're not digesting as well, maybe that's leading to constipation. There's physical problems that you're going to have from this overeating. Or eating the wrong foods could lead to obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and all of the degenerative diseases. So we could look at overeating and we could say, this is why it's bad. And we can list all of the physical reasons why it might not be a good idea to overeat. So those physical reasons really motivated me also to stop overeating and to switch to a plant-based diet that contains mostly whole foods so that I can minimize my physical risks to this problem. But for me, the bigger problem with overeating was the emotional part. The fact that I lost trust in myself whenever I overate, right? Whenever I feel like I'm not strong enough, how can I keep doing this over and over again? I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. It just feels out of control and hopeless. And I see other people around me who seem like they can make a resolution and they can keep it. And I've read lots of stories where people make a firm decision and they don't go back. And meanwhile, here I am trying to make a decision and move forward, but I keep lying to myself and letting myself down. So for me, I went to the whole food plant-based diet. So I think some of you can relate to this. For me, I stopped eating those bad foods. I started eating all good foods. But even then, I'm still overeating. I'm still eating more than I need to at mealtime because I feel like I deserve it, or it's not tasty enough, or I'm avoiding something that's coming up next. And I would often grab snacks that were high-calorie foods too, like lots of nuts and seeds and dates and dried fruit that are all really good for you, honestly. But I was grabbing those foods whenever I was stressed out, and I was using them to try to self-medicate my problems, right? So even though I was eating these healthy foods, and even though I don't look like I'm an overeater, I'm able to keep my weight down because I mostly eat healthy foods. For the longest time, I struggled with overeating and with that emotional piece that I talked about. So for me, the important part is the control. Do I feel like I'm in control of my own life? Can I write down a protocol and follow it? Or do I feel like I'm at the mercy of food? And I think the physical problems with overeating, the physical part has its problems and the emotional part has its problems. But what I've found is that when you solve the emotional problems, whenever you get to that place where you feel free from food, where you can control food, then the physical problems can just go away, right? The physical problems aren't the problem. The emotional problems are, because if physical problems were the problem, then when it hurt, when you touch the stove and it burns you, you stop, right? But whenever we're eating food and we eat it and it's not such a pleasant response afterwards, we still keep coming back to that chocolate cake. I mean, I know so many people who have not a dairy allergy, but they're sensitive to dairy, and it gives them heartburn, or their stomach is bloating and it feels terrible. But they just keep eating that ice cream every time it comes up because it's so delicious and everybody else is doing it, and it's all those mental barriers. So I've kind of alluded to the answer to the problem throughout this episode. The real answer to your problem is to get the mental part right. And I promise it is not insurmountable. It's not this humongous thing that you can't do. It's totally doable. And real quick, in the past, I've thought whenever I tried to stop overeating, I was thinking that there was something wrong with me. So I looked at that. I'm a stress eater, so I need to get rid of stress in order for me to stop stress eating. So I tried that for a while, and I looked into my sources of stress. And whenever I had a stressful situation, then I told myself, if I just need to dissipate this stress, and then I won't overeat. But that didn't work. And also it just seemed so insurmountable. Like, how am I ever going to get rid of stress? I can't. And am I really going to be able to confront every stressful situation and find a solution to it in order to not overeat? No, I can tell you the answer is no, because I've tried and tried. The second solution that I tried was the emotional part, right? I realized that I feel like I'm not enough. Whenever I overeat, it's because I'm feeling like I'm not enough. I feel like I've let myself down in some way and I'm kind of worthless. So I go and I eat to drown my sorrows, or to kind of punish myself for that in some way. So then I thought that I need to do this really big thing of deciding that I'm enough, and I need to feel like I'm enough all the time, because whenever I don't feel like I'm enough, that's when I overeat. And I can tell you again, after much trial and error, that was not the correct solution. So getting the mental part right doesn't mean that you solve all of your problems. It doesn't mean that you never are stressed again. It doesn't mean that there aren't ups and downs in your life. And it doesn't mean that you have to solve all of your philosophical identity problems. Getting the mental part right means that you simply identify the false beliefs that are keeping you moving towards the food as your source of comfort or peace or escape, right? You identify what ideas, what thoughts make you keep going back to food. And I've only been able to identify about 10 common ones. And I know 10 sounds like a lot, but moving through 10 things seems very doable for me. It's very finite. There's a beginning and an end. And if I can move through and tackle these 10 little problems, then my big problem's gone, right? It's not so enormous that I never have stress again, or I never feel unworthy again. This impossible goal. It's not that. It's this finite thing that we're going to be moving through. So there's a few other pieces that you need to understand in order to make this work, and details and things, but I'll be going over those in the next few episodes. So don't miss the next one, because I'm really going to dive into everything you need to know to stop overeating. So I will see you next week. Bye-bye. If you want to make some real change happen, sign up for a free 15-minute Make Your Move call today. It's a one-on-one sales-free call with me where we look at your goals and find which small move will make it happen for you. Go to icutthemustard.com/makeyourmove to sign up for the call today.